So it is my incredible honor tonight to be able to introduce our very esteemed speaker. Pat Squire has been our camp counselor with Nancy Brown for all of these weeks, and you have no idea how many countless hours they put in up until now. So Pat, just the fact that you can do this tonight, 100% respect to you, girl, 100%. All right, so Pat, after 10-year degree in advertising in San Francisco, and 8 years as a public relations publication staffer in Massachusetts, Pat served as executive director of a 501c3 Portland State University Alumni Association for 25 years. While there, she served on a number of nonprofit boards and as chair of 2. She joined the Lake Oswego branch when she retired and has been program chair and president of the branch, as well as a lot of different things that she hasn't mentioned here. If you could help out with that, yep, absolutely, Pat. Welcome, thank you, and we so appreciate you.
Thank you, Sue. So tonight is going to be us sitting around the campfire. It's kind of an intimate group, and we're going to have a discussion about how we achieve new leaders in our branches and in our state, as a matter of fact. This came up as a really important topic in the discussions that Pat and Sue had with the presidents around the state. And frankly, it came up last winter at the Interbranch Council, the Portland Interbranch Council. So I know that there are quite a few longtime members here, and I'm just really a short timer. I've really only been involved with AAUW for about 8 years. I'm coming from a little different perspective, as Sue said. 30 years in nonprofit boards and management. And as a matter of fact, I have a master's degree from Portland State in public administration with an emphasis on nonprofit management. So I know you've all served on other boards and you've had other experiences. So tonight I want to consider this a conversation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out my thoughts and with some examples from my experiences, but then we want to really hear from you. So we're all just kind of sitting around the campfire and we're just shooting the breeze, or however you want to describe it. But we definitely want to hear your experiences. So I have a couple of questions and you can raise your hands physically. How many of you have been in AAUW for more than 10 years? Raise your hands. Quite a few. More than 20 years? Still quite a few. More than 30 years? Oh, well, maybe we don't want to go there. That could be an age thing. So how about how many of you have been in AAUW for less than 10 years? Okay. There's a couple of us. Yeah, good. All right. So then I want to know how many of you are currently branch officers? Well, kind of. Okay. How many have been branch officers? All right. How many of you have had trouble recruiting branch officers? Maybe some of us aren't admitting, but yeah, okay. All right. So the theme for tonight's session on finding leaders is engagement is the path to leadership. And at least one of you knows that this is going to be my topic, and I've discussed it with you. So the idea of engagement may seem simple, and it is. What does engagement mean? Here's my example. When I first started at Portland State, I joined the Office of Alumni Affairs. About 5 years later, they changed it to the Office of Alumni Relations. And then in 2010, we went with the program that all the other universities around the country were doing, which was the Office of Alumni Engagement. So I had a couple of board members that said, wow, you went from having affairs to having relations, and now you're engaged? Wow. So what does engagement really mean? It means engaging people in activities and the programs that you're sponsoring, that you provide. So I was looking at some definitions, and I found one from a business organization that I thought was relevant to what we do. It's a little stuffy sounding, so bear with me. Engagement is a property of the relationship between an organization and its members. An engaged member is one who is fully absorbed by and enthusiastic about their participation, and so takes positive action to further the organization's reputation and interests. Wow, that's pretty amazing. I don't know how many engaged members we have, but let's think about it. So I'd like to know if there are any of you. You can show your hands, you can wave, you can chat, however you want to do it. I want to know if you have some other words for engagement in terms of the relationship with the AAUW.
Yes.
I would involve.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, I would just say that engagement is preceded by welcoming and making people feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Great. Barbara, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, there you go.
go.
Okay. I was just going to say involvement is a term that comes to my mind.
Yes.
If you're engaged, you're an involved person with the branch.
Perfect. Anybody else? Sue, unmute.
Engagement, you have to have an ownership and an understanding of what it is that you're working with, what your program is. You have to have
Great.
a personal investment.
Ownership, I love it. Yeah. Anybody else? Is that Elena?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I was talking to the Corvallis people, I framed it as, are you interested and will you be active in?
So active in is perfect. Yeah. Anybody else? So our organization has a word, American Association. So association is okay, but it doesn't necessarily imply a two-way situation. Contributing, involved in, joining in. So I want to talk about how do we engage people? And I'm going to give some examples. And, you know, Sue is talking about membership on Saturday, and she's really going to delve into this much more deeply, but I'll just give a couple of examples about how we engage people. One is we share our enthusiasm for our mission, equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. We can share that in a lot of different ways, but most of it is kind of conversational. We can also learn about people through meetings in person, or these days, phone calls or Zoom, rides to meetings someday. And we do a lot of profiles of our new members in our newsletter. And I think that's a really important thing to let other members know who the new members are and something about them. We try to keep them fairly brief, but it's still helpful to see who our new members are and what they do. So some of this is probably just like, oh gosh, I know that. But I want to hear your ideas too. So we also like to have some small group gatherings outside of interest groups. You know, interest groups have their little sectors, sometimes cliques, but our branch has had some activities that have involved neighborhoods. We've had neighborhood gatherings. We have a lot of members in one section of Lake Oswego Mountain Park. And so we've had one or two meetings there where we get to know people on kind of a different level. And that's been really helpful. You can also have meetings with people from a same university, maybe you have other ideas about how to have meetings that aren't necessarily interest groups. Any ideas, things that you've done? Claire.
Pat, I want to go back to what Sue said in the last question you asked. The word she used, investment, really hit home to me, but I would
Yeah.
just add mutual before that. Mutual investment really sounds like a very strong way to say engagement.
I think that's a great one. Investment. Yeah, you're investing your time and your energy. Okay, Claire, you had a thought.
Yeah, what we've been trying to do is really get a little closer with a lot of our new members that have come in. And so we try and match their interests and passions to activities and to kind of like-minded people. So one thing is to ask, are they interested in looking at public policy, which is one of my big things. Or some other areas that we're particularly interested in moving forward with, but also try and get them in with groups of other individuals within our branch that also have interests. So you match them to people that we actually already have in the branch, and that kind of widens their interest and kind of brings them along to engage more in what we're doing, as well as coming up with new ideas.
That's awesome. I think that's perfect. Absolutely. Does anybody have a sister relationship, buddies, mentors, partners as new members come in? Georgia.
Yes, in Grants Pass several years ago, for several years, the board members would adopt new members as buddies, and we would make a point to sit with them, meet and greet them at branch meetings. We would, especially if we were in the same interest group, we always talked to them. And one of my buddies that I was assigned to when I was a board member actually ended up being communications VP, and my buddy ended up being president of the branch, and I'm very proud of that.
All right. Anybody else?
Yep.
Thoughts about that?
Marty had her hand up.
Okay, Marty. Unmute yourself, Marty.
I was just going to say that in Lake Oswego, we do have a buddy system where we, as people volunteer or are assigned, whatever, to have a buddy and to sort of communicate with and check to see if they're like going to a meeting or want to get more involved in something or to explain things to them. So that's one of the things that we have. And in addition, I think one of the really important things that we forget about is involving, we sit around at a board meeting and things need to be done. Someone needs to, bring food to this. Someone needs to do set up or whatever. And we just always go, and it used to be that, it got to be easier just to say, okay, well, I'll do it, you'll do it, and the board winds up doing all this stuff rather than, contacting another new member or another member and involving them, asking them if they would do this, if they would, be interested in bringing something, being involved in something. And we have several members that I know that I, as interest chair, got involved with that I thought what might be, potential people to be involved. And a couple of them now are co-interest chairs and whatever. And I think that approach really works well. That's sort of how I got really involved, was being invited to be on the membership committee. And prior to that, I was actually thinking of quitting because I really didn't know anybody. I would go to Saturday meetings and I talked to a couple people and that was it. But, it really made a big difference for me.
Thanks. That's great.
Pat,
Anybody else?
Could you repeat the question?
Well, the question is, does anybody else have a situation that they can talk about where they connect people new members especially?
I'd like to say that. Hi, I'm Bev Ann Sitters. Because of the COVID situation, I do membership. I'm a VP of membership. And because of it being online, what I've done with I have 2 new members, and I'm doing an interview with them via Zoom. And so in our newsletter, I write that up. Here's our new member. But because we have new members, I don't want I'm calling them seasoned members to feel left out. So I'm also going to highlight a seasoned member each month in the newsletter, so that comes out. And the theme that I just finished writing was, and you talk about what do you use in terms of engagement, I call it connection, membership being connection. And so I've written this up and it's going in the newsletter tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, so it's going to be highlighted every week. I've got it, and I always get their permission first if I can record them. And everything is closed captioned and all that before I put that online and provide the link. So, because it's another way we have to share because of this COVID situation. And you guys are doing a dynamite job. I'm just absolutely loving these workshops. Thank you.
Bev, that is a great idea. What branch are you with?
Pat's gonna love this. Pat Lehman, my friend. I actually live in California. I'm with the Glendale branch, California online, but I joined the Oregon online branch as well. And I've known Pat for many years. We served on national membership. So I'm kind of sneaking in here, but loving you so much. Thank you, guys.
Not sneaking, Bev. Not sneaking.
Bev, thank you for joining us, and what a great idea. We have talked about that in our branch. So there's people that have been around for a few years. New members come in. They don't know who the older members are or anything about them. So that's a very clever idea. Thank you for sharing that.
And I like calling them seasoned. I love that.
Yeah,
instead of old.
Right.
Spicy members.
Spicy members, yeah, very often. One of the things that one of my branches used to do, and I wish they still would, but the person who instigated it has passed along, we had an orientation for new members every fall. And we asked them, it was a very informal gathering at someone's home with, food, of course. And one of the things that we asked, besides just getting to know them in general, and all the committee chairs and the branch officers were there to talk about what we do and, give them an idea of what they were getting into. But one of the things we were sure to ask and take note of was, why did you join? What is your passion? What are your interests? What are your skills? How do you think you can be involved? And then we picked that up and ran with it and gave them tasks that were in their skill set, that were in their passion area, something they could do. And we connected them with people that we knew were experienced in that area and brought them along. And that was wonderful.
That's great, Pat. Yeah. And I know Marty Maharg in our branch is really terrific at connecting people when they fill out their membership form and they talk about, we have a check off places about what they're interested in, what kind of groups they might want to join. Marty is on top of it. She connects them with the interest group leader that they're talking about, and they get an invitation to the interest group right away. And I think that's really important. So I'm going to say sort of a negative thing, a little bit. When I first joined my branch, it seemed like there were some cliques. And I think we really need to avoid that. Appearance, anyway. We belong to different groups and we love that book group, but don't just hang out with those people. You have to get to know everyone. So I truly believe that all of the members of branch leadership, the branch leadership team, and in my branch, it's 12 of us, I guess, should have some knowledge of every member. If a member's name comes up at a meeting and we say, oh, well, she hasn't renewed, and no one knows that person, we're not doing our job. Somebody, at least one person, but hopefully more than one person, has to know everyone. So that's just my thing. So Nancy's going to put us in a couple of breakout groups now. We luckily have kind of a small number, so it can be kind of intimate. And what I'd like you to do, she's going to just assign them arbitrarily. What I'd like you to do is talk about other ways that your branch has engaged members. And when we come out of it, I'd like to hear one suggestion from each group. But I think the idea of truly engaging people, and Marty Stevens, I went to a seminar that you did at the Medford Convention, and I got a lot out of that about engaging people. So, Nancy's going to break us into groups and just think about ways that your branch has engaged people that has been really positive.
Now, Pat, you
Nancy, may I be in a group with Bev because I have questions to ask her?
I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
sorry.
think Nancy can do that. Sorry,
I
Pat.
can't. I can do it ahead of time, but I can't do it
Random
now.
groups.
Okay.
Sorry.
Groups. Okay, we'll deal with it later.
You guys have to meet on your own.
Thank you for coming, Bev.
Yeah.
And Pat Squire, you will also be assigned to a group, just so you know. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. See you in a few. I think that was fun. It went really well in our little group. Yeah. Anybody have anything really exciting to share? I think Lee in our group had a really good one.
Sue wants me to share from our group.
Okay.
I saw that we had 2 new members, and I contacted them, and Bev is one of them. And though we had a misunderstanding at first as to why I was contacting her, it opened the channel, and she stepped forward and volunteered to help me with the parliamentary procedure after the camp meeting. And the other gal from North Carolina, she says as soon as we were available to join online, she joins all of, she's not here, I don't think. I don't know if she's been Nancy Sen something. I've lost it.
Probably Shoemaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Has she been?
She's served at national level on technology committees and well known for her expertise.
And she gave lots of great ideas. So
Great.
We were supposed to share that from our group.
Anybody else? Trish.
Yeah, I would just want to say Kathy Dew is in our group. I know, don't listen, Kathy. I know this sounds kind of dumb, but it was really quite insightful. And that is icebreakers. She had this book of, 100 and gazillion icebreakers. It breaks up that click thing and really fosters, or whatever it is. I think that's really quite brilliant. So there you go, Kathy.
Lee from our group. Yeah, Lee, unmute yourself.
We actually had a couple of branches who did something that we did as well. And that is our board member. We divvied up all our members and assigned them to our board members, and our board members called every branch member. We made sure everyone was contacted. And we've done it a couple of times. And the first time we did it was at the beginning of COVID. And I was sharing the story that we actually had some members who were shut in and having a hard time getting around, and they needed toilet paper. So we actually had one board member who actually was delivering toilet paper to members of the group. And that was something that was well received, especially for people who were pretty frightened at the beginning of COVID. And so it helped to hear from a friendly voice. So
that's great. Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I segue on Lee just for a second? Lee, when I got that call, because I didn't know, I was sharing this with our group too, and I haven't been involved with our Grants Pass board for a while. And when I got that call from Lori, I was telling you, it blew me away. It was a half-hour incredible conversation that engaged me in so many ways, and I didn't think I could be more engaged. So it was a great reach out. And go Grants Pass, just in.
Yeah. Okay. I saw Mary Pat raise her hand. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Mary Pat.
I am. That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We didn't choose a spokesperson, so I don't know if somebody else from my group wants to speak, but I'm always ready. We had Liz Bartell from Astoria, Marlene Kraut from Pendleton, and Rhonda Blending from Tigard area, and myself in my group. And Marlene talked about very early on assigning new members to committees to, get them immediately engaged in activities. Liz talked about at the very first meeting of the year, getting new members, well, asking everybody, I think, it might have just been new members, to sign up to help with various events throughout the year, but including new members, so that they, at some point during the year, they're going to have to be, not have to be, but they're going to be engaged and feel a part of things. Of course, for Lake Oswego, Marty, our membership vice president, spoke earlier, but also I'll mention something, a couple of things. One, that you started, I think, Pat, when you were president before me, and that was to have the new members do a readers theater together. And that was fantastic because it not only engaged us, but it gave us an opportunity to get to know each other very well. We were 5 or 6, I don't remember, and we rehearsed several times. So, we really all had a chance to feel like we were coming in together, and it was created a real esprit de corps, which I think was quite important. So thank you for that. And the other thing, and we're not alone in this, the other branches do something like this too in our discussion. We not only, when we have new membership meetings, which we try to have twice a year, not this year maybe, we decided last year to make them new and prospective members. And so it was a way also to start engaging people and bringing them in. That's kind of more recruitment maybe, but still it's a way to make them feel a part and want to participate. So that's it.
We actually got.
Thank you. So I kind of want to move along a little bit because there's some more things to talk about, and we've talked about engagement, and I don't want Lake Oswego to dominate, ladies, sorry. Okay, but we all know that not everyone is going to be engaged, right? There are people that belong to book groups, and that's all they want to do, and that's fine. But I think our job is to try to get them more engaged. So how do we identify and cultivate the next leaders? Well, we talked about engagement, but then there's the whole process, the nominating committee. So frequently the nominating committee is formed in the winter, like maybe January or February, and you've got to come up with these next leaders by April for your board meeting so they can be elected. That's not a lot of time, and sometimes you don't really have much of a chance to figure out how to do this. So I think we need to start earlier. I also argue that this should really be a year-long process, and Marty, I kind of got this from you, that involves most of the members of the leadership team, and that is in the cultivation and engagement of current and new members. And the membership committee, if you have one, and I hope you do, is really committed to welcoming new members, and they ought to be involved as well. So then, who should be on the nominating committee? Now, each board has different policies and procedures and bylaws about all of that. Ours happens to be, it's 3 members, 2 from the board, and a non-board member on the nominating committee. And while the president and the members of the board are not necessarily on the nominating committee, the president shouldn't be, they can certainly make recommendations for candidates, people that they've become aware of and that they know about. So they can make suggestions to the nominating committee. So I would also like you to consider who should really be on that nominating committee. And I really think that the immediate past president, thank you, Kathy Dew, but the immediate past president is a good person to be on your nominating committee because they know a lot of people, they've seen how people work together, and so forth. I also think a member of the membership committee should be on the nominating committee. But those are just my opinions. So to me, the nominating committee needs to have a charge from either the president or the entire board about which positions are to be elected. So I was on the state nominating committee a couple of years ago with Kathy Dew, entirely by accident. Thank you, Penny Hoodenpyle, for putting me on as an alternate, and then somebody dropped out, so I was on it. And we left off a position that really we needed to nominate somebody for. Sorry, Arlene, it was you. But so you really need a charge from the current president that says, okay, here are the positions that we need to fill, and here's what you need to do. I think the nominating committee should come into being in about October, November, and that the entire membership should know who is on the nominating committee. And it should be clear that they can nominate themselves if they want to, or they can make suggestions, but only the people on the nominating committee do the actual asks. That gets a little fuzzy sometimes. I also think that the nominating committee needs to have the current position descriptions for the positions that they're trying to fill. So let me ask those of you who are officers, how many of you read your position description before you were elected to your office? I'm not raising my hand here. I see a few hands, not too many.
I just want to say that Kathy Dew has the strongest of strong arms that you have ever seen. She's amazing. She is. You know, it's not that I was totally unwilling. It's just that I needed a lot of reassurance, a lot of confidence, a lot of yes, you can. And of course, doesn't matter. And yeah, you know, I mean, there could be co's and, you know, all of those reassuring things that made me really think about the task. So, and she called me twice because or maybe even 3 times, because I initially said no. And, you know, that's something that nominating committee should know, is that just because someone says no the first time doesn't mean that you can't go back and say, hey, you know,
you can negotiate, right?
Yeah, we
exactly.
can think about this some more.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm going to use Kathy as an example. Then I think your nominating committee needs to come to agreement on who they think is suitable for the positions. We all know this, but they need to set a schedule and make assignments about who is going to make the asks. This is really important, and Pat, you're just citing that because you were asked by the past president to be the incoming president or the president-elect. That's really important, I think. When I was alumni director at Portland State, I was active in a professional organization called CASE, and the past president of the regional board made an appointment with me, and he came to visit me. And I knew him. He had a lot of credibility. I respected him. He was from OHSU. And he sat down and he calmly explained the job. He was just recruiting me for the board, not for a leadership position. And he talked about what he thought I would add, which was really important to me. So I think how you're recruited is really important to whether you really want to do the job. So if anyone wants to talk about how they were recruited to their position, I'd love to hear it.
I'll take this on with Kathy Dew as well. Kathy also strong-armed me, and I told her no more than once.
And we don't like to use the word strong-armed, ladies.
But, okay,
campers.
Kathy asked very strongly if I would do this. Is that better?
Yeah.
But my first question to her is, I wanted the job description. I wanted to know time frame. I had a list of questions for her. But one of the things that I did on my own is I reached out to people that had held the position before.
Perfect.
And I asked for mentorship and I asked for direction. And I said, okay, how much time is this? And those of you that are here know who I did. And, you know, I asked for very direct questions because I wanted to know specifically, number one, do you think, you know me, do you think I'm capable of doing this? Number two, what is going to be involved in the position? What were the pluses and minuses for you holding the position before? So poor Kathy had to deal with all my questions. Thank you, Kathy. Love you.
But, you know, that's
Love you too, my dear.
so important. Anybody else about how you were recruited?
I have two comments. One from somebody else was telling me one time, they got me over a cup of coffee. I mean, how
They
great
have
is that?
coffee.
Yeah. And the other thing, in terms of my own personal experience, I remember Bob Irvin years ago, bless his heart, called me by phone. He was on the nominating committee, and he said, this position is open and your name keeps coming up.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if I could, Pat. Oh.
Linda?
Go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to say, you know, the strong arm is something I'm hearing and can relate to. I don't think that's what we want to do. And I like the idea that you're talking about going out back further, but I'd go even further back. I would love to see us get to the point where we're not talking about just nominating people, but actually having a succession plan to think about what positions are going to be rolling off, when will we need them, and if it's 2 years from now, you can look at younger people, and instead of even reaching out to solicit them at this point, let's start creating learning opportunities and developmental opportunities to prepare them so that a year from now, when you want to start talking to them about taking that position, they're feeling more comfortable and capable of doing it.
Spoken like a businesswoman.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
it. Learning opportunities and development. That's great.
Right.
Excellent.
And I think that rolls off the engagement piece, Pat, that you've been talking about. We get people engaged. We get them busy. They know what they are doing. They know more and more about the organization and what the demands are in each position. And then we have our eye on them, and we can start mentoring and pulling them along and, you know, showing them more and more. And eventually they will be ready to take that position. You know, one of the things I've been concerned about is succession, because bless your hearts, board and executive committee. Sue and I know Sue agrees with me on this. We are so grateful to you because you are amazing people. And, you know, we trust you and you have done fabulous work. But we keep wondering who is going to follow you, and how do we know who those people are, and what can we do to help, and what can we all do to help bring them along? Because I know that you're not going to want to be doing this until you're 90 years old.
So just to kind of conclude this segment, the point is the nominating committee is really important, and they should start early, and they should have the support of the entire board. The nominating committee doesn't necessarily take orders from the board. They know what positions they have to fill, but it's an important committee, and it should be given really very much consideration. Claire, I think you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, we've one of the pieces of our strategic planning for the branch is succession planning for all the officers. And what we, before COVID, we were trying to find a way where we do succession planning, and we give a year, for instance, of the new person to shadow the officer that's in at that particular time. And we have job descriptions, and we have all these different kinds of things for those and for the committees. The thing that I'm concerned about is giving enough time for a person to learn enough about a job and an office that they can come in and they can start using their new ideas in planning and development of their position. Because I think if you don't give them time to not only learn what the position is, but to be able to start thinking about new ways of doing things. And I think that for us has been something we've been really concerned about in instituting in who we choose, and looking at not the same people all the time, but really spending some time trying to find people that haven't been in those positions before. And it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, Claire. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of work. So I'm going to just talk. Yeah.
I have had my hand up and I.
Oh, I'm sorry, Georgia. I didn't see it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Look, I want to give kudos to Joyce Zook, who floored me greatly when she asked me if I would even consider being president-elect, because all I had done was serve 3 years as dues treasurer, and I was just fine being in the background, working on my computer, filling out forms. I was not an elected officer, and I didn't think anyone paid any attention much to what I was doing. But Joyce was very logical and very convincing, and she asked me to consider. And of course, I didn't say no and I didn't say yes because I wanted to think about it. But she was very logical and thought that I could do the job because I asked her, and I was very impressed with Joyce as president, as co-president. To this day, I'm still very impressed with Joyce Zook as co-president and how she handled the job. And so I asked if I could have a few days to consider and think about it. And at the time, I was president of the Zonta Club of Grants Pass. So I, of course, did what Sue did before she did that. I went around and I called different people, and some of them are here in this display, in this meeting, and I asked them now, and I trusted these people to tell me the truth. And I said, do you think I can handle this? And I expected them to tell me, are you crazy? You can't do that. Or I expected them to tell me, yeah, you can handle that, but to be truthful. And so they said that they thought that I could certainly do that. And so when I called her back and I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll help out. And that's always been my answer, and my expectation is that, yeah, I can help. I'll help you out. And so I did that. And that has always been the way that I approach things, is I can help you out. I'll do this and help you out. So when I then, Kathy Dew was a good mentor for me. We went to the last national convention and she showed me the ropes, and it was just wonderful. And we swore we would be roommates if they ever have another one. So
thank you, Georgia. That's great. Yeah, it's I will help out is a great philosophy, and that's what we want to say, but we can't always. So I'm going to just quickly cover, there's 3 really general methods for recruiting leaders or board members, or specifically leaders. There's a shotgun approach. You put out a big, massive email or a newsletter article, and you might get some people to volunteer that you didn't know about, but you might get some people that you aren't quite so sure about. Then there's the friend recommends the friend situation, and I had an example of that where a guy on my alumni board recommended one of his friends from school, and the guy was a leader in his industry and all this kind of stuff. So we elected him. He never came to a single board meeting, but he came to the summer retreat at the beach and brought his son, and he came to the meeting and disrupted it by offering all these opinions. And of course, he really didn't know what he was talking about. So the friend to the friend thing doesn't always work. It can work. But obviously, I'm advocating for the selective approach, which is you target people, you meet with them, you find out about their interests and their capabilities. And if you see a candidate that you think is a future leader, seek their opinion, and as several of you have said, get them involved in a project that uses their skills. Claire, you talked about that. That's really important. Don't give them a menial task. Get them really involved in something important. So, if we have someone that's interested in programs, get them on that program committee or connected with your VP of programs. Or if they're interested in advocacy, get them involved with Lobby Day and Trish. And you need to make sure that the candidate is up to speed on AAUW. If they've been in an interest group, but they really don't know about AAUW, either you need to coach them, give them some sessions or something, but it's hard to be a branch leader or any kind of leader in AAUW if you don't really understand the organization. There's one other approach that I certainly don't advocate, and that is you're in a position and you think, okay, I'm getting out of this position. I need to recruit my person to take my job. No, that's for the nominating committee, not for you. You can suggest, but you never ask a person to take your job. So I want to talk about why some of our members are afraid to take on leadership. And I know that this has come up over the last many years really, and how we can change that dynamic. So I'm going to throw out a couple of excuses that I know we've all heard, and then I want to hear if you've heard other excuses. Some of the most common ones are, takes too much time. I don't really want that job. I'm not sure if I'm a leader, or are you kidding me? I've seen the position description and it's way too much work. So are there other excuses that you've heard as you've tried to recruit people? Kathy, maybe you know that?
Well, what comes to my mind, I think a lot of people look at the person that they know that's in that job and they're not like that person. And so they immediately think, oh no, I'm not like her, so that's not for me. And sometimes they can be the very best in kind of changing the direction of things. In fact, I really think that the person that follows should be different in order to bring a different perspective. But often you're looking at the person that's there and thinking, no, I wouldn't do it that way. So I'm the wrong.
That's a really, really great point. Anybody else? Sue Thomas. Thank you for coming, Sue. Unmute yourself. Sue, unmute yourself.
I'm doing it.
There you are. Okay.
What I think is that everything is changing right now. We are doing so much change that what we need to do is to make ourselves relevant and important. We know that the pandemic has made a huge impact on our membership. We've called all our members to check in with them, and they really appreciate it. But we also need to make sure that Black Lives Matter, and we need to reach out to other groups and try to make ourselves relevant to them so that our leadership can grow in a way that makes us stronger. We have so much to do. We have all these scholarships and all the things that we believe in. And we need to move forward on those. And we need to get leadership that's going to come up to meet that task. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Really good, really important. Anybody else hear excuses about people not wanting to take leadership?
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
So, there's ways to overcome some of these. Kathy, I don't know how to overcome yours. I think part of it is to say to a person that, you don't have to be like me, or you don't have to be like Kathy Do. You can be very different, but still be super successful. I think, the person that's currently in the position has to meet with the prospect. And Sue, you talked about this, and talk realistically about the amount of time it takes and what other kind of effort it takes. I was recruited to a nonprofit board in Portland having to do with senior housing, and the executive director and the president of the board took me to lunch, and it was just a board position, but he talked about the amount of time that he spent as president and the amount of time I would spend as a board member, and I was committed. It sounded great. If the candidate is organized and has support from, say, the VP for finance or the membership person, and Marty, I know you went through that transition, you can really figure out how much time it's going to take and what it's going to take for you to do. You don't have to do it exactly like the other person did it. You might be able to streamline it. The treasurer position, oh, that sounds awful. I'm not good with money. I wouldn't know how to do that. Well, I was treasurer of a nonprofit organization. Actually, it was Save the Simon Benson House. And that wasn't my strength, but I did it because I figured I had to know where the money was coming from and where it was going. So, position descriptions, I think, can be a downfall. And I'm glad Claudia's not on this session because I know she's rewriting some of them. And I think, Elena, you're helping her. But, if the position description is too long, and it's like this big wish list. Oh, I think you ought to be doing this and this and this. You look at that and you go, oh my gosh, I couldn't possibly do that. So I think, we've heard this from people say, oh my gosh, if I had looked at that position description before I took this job, I would not have done it. How many of you would say that? I would say it. Yeah. So I think, position descriptions are super important, but I think they have to fit your board or your organization, the size of your organization, your culture, and what you can realistically accomplish with the kind of people that you have with you. So I think that's really important. But note well, if you're in the position of spending a lot of time, and I'm saying this to Kathy, but you worked it out. If you're in the position of spending a lot of time trying to talk someone into doing something, you may not get the best results. And I think, Kathy, what you did with Sue and Pat is you worked through it with both of them. You put them together, you kind of negotiated it, and look at the result. I think it's going to be fantastic. I'll give an experience from my background. I was on a nonprofit board in Portland that had an executive director, and I was just on the board. I was just a random board member. I didn't have a real function but being on the board. So I got a call one night from one of the leaders who said, oh, we really want you to be president. And I said, oh, I'm just not ready for that at all. I had no idea. So this went on for an hour or so. And then I said, well, I have to think about it. And then the next night I got another call from another person, really, to use the expression, twisting my arm. And she made me feel guilty, like it was my responsibility to do this job. So I accepted. And it was kind of a mistake. I didn't live up to what I would have liked to have done. So I would caution that if you have to spend a lot of time talking somebody into doing something, it may not be worth it. So kind of the last thing here is you can consider structuring the office positions in your branch or in the state, for that matter, to best take advantage of your actual membership, the size of your branch, the culture, and the timing. So we know that Kim Church has said, and we all know this, Linda O'Hara isn't here, but she's a marvel at this. If you have a small branch, as Kim mentioned, you're only really required to have 2 officers. One is the president and or the contact person, and the other is a finance person. So if you're a small branch, that's all you really need. But from there, you might consider what else you think you need or what you desire. So the president may become the program officer and the finance officer may become the secretary. But you just need to consider your own branch and what you've got. And if you have a large branch and everyone seems daunted by being the leader, consider a co-leadership model. And Sue Thomas, I know you just went through this with the Portland branch, and it turned out very successfully, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yes, I am so proud of Susan and Katie. They are doing a wonderful job, and I know they will. They're both very capable and wonderful. So I just am thrilled.
Great.
And they're friends. They're friends.
Oh, that helps.
Which makes it really nice, you know, because.
Right. And I can add that they have a lot of enthusiasm and ideas. And one thing, if I might add about being a co-person, it really helped that Sue and I knew each other quite well before, you know, we thought about the idea of sharing this position. And we got together, we found that we are exactly on the same page with everything. We found easy ways, we thought, we still think, to share the responsibilities. And so far, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's been working beautifully. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy about that.
And that's great. It's not a new model. You know, we've had the co's in the past, but I think it's something that we all have to consider these days. There's also the two-person model for finance, which our branch has adopted, and it works beautifully. And there's also a chair of a position. So in our branch, we have membership chair. Now it's Marty, but she has a committee. Now, not everybody has committees, but in her case, it's so helpful because she keeps track of things, but her members are doing the outreach to the new members and so forth. So she's not doing the job alone. So there's another co-president model that's kind of interesting, and that is a new co-president every year. So this sounds kind of weird, but so two people serve. One person is the experienced member, and the second person is new. So I just joined my retired faculty association at Portland State, and I'm the co-president, but I'm new. So the other co-president has been there for a year already, and he's kind of taking me through the ropes. I know the organization very well, but I'm serving as kind of co-president in training. So it's not really president-elect, it's co-president. So I will share responsibility with him, but I'm learning on the job. And so far it's working really well. So obviously the other model is president-elect, which we have in our state. And I think some branches have attempted it. And I'm not sure how well it's worked. Any branches doing a president-elect? Claire?
I was president-elect and then came into the position, and that worked very well. And we're trying to do that in this next position as well. I thought it's like having somebody who can then shadow you.
Right.
And I think it's a really great idea.
Great.
Pendleton branch is doing the alternating year elected person to join the current president, one of the models that you mentioned, not co-president, but serving 2 years, basically. You learn 1 year and then you're the main person, and then the other person comes on with you.
Okay. Okay, I'm starting to look at the chat, which I haven't been doing. Sue, can you help me out? Share job.
Let's see, finding, ILGA. But the problem has been finding the president. Others are willing to serve in the lower offices. It's a question from ILGA.
So Mary Pat asks about how co-presidents work and how is the division of labor decided and carried out. So Pat and Sue, maybe you can answer that.
Yeah. I've talked a lot. Sue, do you want to address it this time?
Sure, I'll take it on. I'm fortunate, I work, so I'm not available during business hours. So Pat has more flexibility in that area. So we took the job description And we're really good at saying, okay, can you do this? Do you have time to do this? Can you do this? We both have skill sets and we're able to complement those skill sets. But we sat down very early on and had a meeting, took the job description and said, okay, I feel comfortable with this. I can work with this. You're good at that. Let's see how it works together. And we just sat down and hashed it out item by item. And some of the things we share, but for us, one of our rules and regulations, if you want to call it that, is we want to CC for both. So anybody that, is sending us information or questions or concerns, whatever, CC both of us, because we need to be in the same communication. I think Pat described us once as hooked at the hip, but across sides to the state.
Okay. Anybody else? Mary Pat, did you have a question? Mary Pat, unmute yourself.
Thank you. I still, to tell you, it's something I'm very interested in. But when I think about it, sometimes it seems to me like it would be even more work to have somebody that you're training at the same time, or even to try and divide things up. I mean, especially these days with COVID, when I feel like I'm on my computer 20 hours a day dealing with stuff. And to sort, I don't know how easily things could be divided. How, if you have to respond quickly, it's just as easy to respond as it is to ask somebody else to respond. Or I'm just trying to understand the nitty gritty of it, but I don't want to take too much of everybody's time. I'm just really curious. Details how it works out.
I'm sorry, can I address this?
Katie, yes.
Yeah, I'm co-president with Susan Marthins in Portland. And I think the secret to me is how well you get along with the other person, how comfortable you are in conversation, how you communicate. And we communicate really well. We've known each other for less than 10 years, but more than 5. And, she's been a mentor to me in AAUW, and it just works. And I think to me, that's the key. And what she doesn't want to do, I'll take on. I'm happy to do it. And she's the same for me. So there you go. It works easily.
Pat, there's another question on from Claire. Shouldn't the branch bylaws or the branch of this, let's see, bylaws of the branch or state list which officers are to be filled?
That was based on, I want that, I'm not asking that question. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, just
back up, reverse. All right, we're back.
Okay. So I'd like to hear from Lee. You're talking about the model that I'm kind of just got involved in. Where did Lee go? There she is. Lee?
Oh, you know what? I was just going to say Ashland branch is doing the model very well. And they've been doing it for years, and we work pretty closely with them in our district. And we always enjoy the fact that they seem to have worked that out very smoothly. So there would be another resource.
So you say they're having one experienced president and then a new president. So they're which is the model I was just talking about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the new one, the new person who's in training comes along to all the meetings, but and weighs in when she wants to. But for the most part, she's like the president-elect in some regards. She's listening and she's learning, and then she's ready to take charge the next year. And they've had a good success with that. If somebody wants to talk to them about that, which is very different from co-presidenting,
right,
which we were just hearing about.
Okay.
Right.
Anybody else?
One thing I might say, and this does not apply to Sue and me because we've never had this as an issue, but I've seen it operating in other organizations where if you do have a you absolutely want to set egos aside and not worry about who gets credit for doing what, because that is so counterproductive and toxic.
Good point. And I think we all have to put credit aside anyway. Okay, so I'd like to just move on. I know people are getting where it's getting late. So how current leadership can help with a transition. So obviously the current officer or the outgoing officer should work with the incoming officer. And I think they should do it right after the incoming officer is elected and work with them, share their materials, and continue to be available during the year. The new leader may want a mentor, and it may not be the person in the position before her, but it might be someone else she respects and trusts and has good institutional AAUW knowledge. In my case, when I came in as president, the person that was president before me had a new state job that was taking a lot of her time, and I turned to someone else who had a good institutional memory, and that worked really well. She was kind of my go-to person. Don't forget the leader calendar in the directory, and I'm going to have a handout at the end here that will have a link to all of the things. But a lot of people don't ever look at the directory, and they aren't aware of that leader calendar. But as far as I'm concerned, every branch officer should look at that calendar. New leaders may want to do things a little differently, and of course that's okay, as long as they know their bylaws and the general expectations of the leadership and their branch culture. You don't want to go off and do something that is really antithetical to your branch. And of course, it's really important to have buy-in from all of the board members. Some leaders make extensive use of the board and or the executive committee and use a very collaborative process. I'm a big advocate of that, because if your leaders are on board with you, your branch members probably will be too. So that's pretty obvious. I'm sort of stating the obvious there. Any other examples of making that leadership transition easy?
Do it early.
Marty?
Do it early as you suggested.
Yeah.
Right after all that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think most of us here have been in a leadership position, and I'm going to look over here and see if I have any other questions. Ilga Ross says she's happy to share how the co-president worked. I know she was co-president with Trish Garner in Portland, and I think, Ilga, you're still co-president in Tigard. Is that right? I think maybe she's gone. All right.
I'm here, and that is correct. I'm still co-president. So I've had about going into my 6th year as a co-president. But our system that we've set up, and it's with 3 different people, but our system is all pretty well structured with lines of responsibility.
Okay, great. Great.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah. Ilga is a great resource. I have used her wonderfully. And Katie, you should feel free to call Ilga, because she's so knowledgeable and she knows just about everything about AAUW. And so, I give Ilga a real thumbs up.
Yeah. So Ilga has just produced the directory. It is on the website, I believe, Ilga. And are you going to be sending it out? Okay. So for those of you who don't know, the directory is more than just a directory. It's got branch presidents and state officers and all that stuff, but it has so much valuable information. It has the names of the presidents and the officers of all of the branches. So if you have a question about something that you want to know, you can call a president of any other branch. You can all call Ilga. Ilga, you're going to be getting calls. But the most important thing is the calendar that's in it, the officer calendar, which tells you what to do month by month. And I think most of us know that. So I'm going to kind of end by saying that we should all examine our reasons for being a leader. I had a great colleague at Portland State who was the vice president actually over me. And she was a great communicator and really smart. So our professional organization did conferences every year, and we did a big conference in Las Vegas one year, and my colleague was one of the speakers, and her topic was, so you want to be a vice president. So a vice president at the university level is kind of a big job. And she said, you know, some people want to be vice president, and I think we can think of somebody that we know that wants to be president, but do they want to do president? Do they want to do the job? And to me, that is the most important thing. If you want to just be a president, maybe that's not our calling. You need to want to do the work to be a leader. And to me, that's the most important part of it. And I agree, forget the credit. It doesn't really matter. So any other questions? Elena, Nancy is going to put up the resource page here at the end. And so it has bylaws. Of course, we all need to know those bylaws. National has some position descriptions that are kind of simple, but I kind of like them because they don't go into so much detail that you feel like, oh my God, I couldn't do that. So then we have the state directory, and it's on our website, I hope by now, Ilka. And it has the leaders calendar, which I think is toward the end of it, but look through it and you'll see how much important information is there. AAUW has state position descriptions, which I frankly think are a little overdone. That's just me, just saying. And then there are our state bylaws. And of course, your branch has bylaws and position descriptions. And if you don't have position descriptions, you might think about having them for the elected officers anyway. So thank you. Oh, how will developing leaders look with COVID? Oh, that's such an interesting question. You know, we're just going to have to work through this the best we can because we have no idea what is in our immediate future. And we just have to follow the procedures that we've been doing all along, engaging people, making those phone calls. Just so important to keep that communication open. Ilga just wrote the fund position and it's only a half a page, right, Ilga? All right, any other questions? Anybody?
Pat, this is Marty Stevens. I'd like to underscore what Linda said a little while ago about having a succession plan. I don't think we maybe have talked enough about that this evening, and maybe that could be something for the future. AAUW National is certainly keen on supporting states and branches in having succession plans, having it on the table at virtually every event. Speaking to it, having expectations of no, not your officers are not the nominating committee, but they can be instrumental in their enthusiasm. And you said that at the very beginning this evening. Your enthusiasm for the position gives your branch or your state so much credibility, vitality, of course, and building on leadership development, leadership succession. So I would just offer that because building a pipeline for leaders and for leadership is critical for all of our entities, all of our affiliates.
Absolutely. And I think, Claire, you talked about that. And so maybe at a future time, you can share that with us. Maybe you could do an article in the newsletter about your succession plan.
Sure.
That'd be great. Okay. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions or final comments? You guys have been great. You're the committee here, so I really appreciate your participation, and I hope you learned something. I know a lot of this is kind of the same old stuff, but maybe from a little different perspective.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
I just want to say,
for coming. Yeah, thanks for participating.
I just want to say that this may be kind of speaking to the choir, but this video is going on YouTube and will be available for all branch members to take a look at, for all branch leaders to take a look at. so that we can share the knowledge that, I mean, this is incredible, the amount of knowledge in this group of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we're not just keeping it to ourselves. We're going to share it with everyone. I think that's really the benefit of this has been tonight, is the conversation.
Thank you all so much. It was really helpful to me to hear your perspective. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat.
Good night.
Take care.
Oh,
Night.
and tomorrow morning, no, Saturday
No,
morning. We'll see
Saturday,
you
we get a
again.
break. We get Friday off. Thank you all.